Right, let's get started. Announcements. So your quiz 5, please remember to complete it, which is in your week 6 folder. I think the deadline was on Monday, but I saw a lot of people didn't do it, so I extended to today. Make sure you do it if you pass the deadline. That's it. Assignment 2 is available. This is due March the 29th, so you have almost like a whole month to do it. Make sure you start early and ask questions early if you have them. Your final project instruction is also available on eCampus. So you will need to have 4 people in a group. We have 42 students in total, so we should have 4 people in each group. You cannot work alone. I know some people want to work by themselves. You can do that here. This is a practice for future work environment. It's not likely that you can just work by yourself. You need to learn how to communicate with other people, how to work together. At the end, if there's like social loafing, do you guys know social loafing? Okay. Okay, so social loafing is when you're in a group, you're less likely to put in your max effort. Right? So if there's social loafing happening and you notice your teammates is not putting in equal amount of work, or you don't think it's fair, I will have this intra-group evaluation at the end. You pretty much evaluate your group mates, and then that will influence your grade as well. So make sure you work together and communicate. Email me and Emily, your group members, by Sunday this week. You got it? Yes?
When did you say that you have to respond to?
Quiz 5, I think it's due today, midnight.
Do you want to do today? You have it set as Friday.
Oh, Friday it is.
Friday, fine?
Yeah, yeah, that's fine. Thank you, though. Okay. Some correlation. You guys remember correlation, right? Talked about that. So, and then for the quiz 5 survey results, what we found is that with the study group, the exam 1 average was 87th, and without a study group, the average was 77. It's like 10% gaps. It's not causation, it's correlation, but still it shows us something, a pattern. Make sure you have a study group. Also, you will need that for your final group as well. You might as well just form a study group right now. It's gonna be very helpful. Okay. So evaluation, 31 out of 42 completed it, which is very good, high percentage. For those who haven't done it, just do it. Also, you need to submit the screenshot on eCampus to receive that extra credits. It's pretty easy, just do it. It seems like most people enjoy the class, which is good. You're happy, I'm happy, and that's what I want. And I'm going to spend a couple minutes to discuss some of your suggestions. I'll try to address them, and maybe we can find solutions together. So there's a comment that says that I go over the lecture slides too fast sometimes. Can't follow up. So solution, so you could use the lecture outlines to help with note-taking. I think that should be helpful. Also, you can look at that to kind of glimpse what we will cover or what the exam's going to cover during the class. So yeah, so that's why we have PowerPoints posted afterwards and the lecture outlines, which is they're all posted on eCampus. I think so, right? You guys have that, right? Okay. Also, I could cut down the lecture content, but the con would be you would need to spend more time on readings to understand those information instead of I'm trying to telling you that. No? So Marcus says no.
I don't like that.
If you want me to cut down the lecture and slow down, we can discuss this more. Raise your hand. No one in the in-person class? What about online students? So we have 20 students online. Okay, so they prefer someone explain it to me. Okay. Well, it seems like it's the majority. Okay, so it seems like it's the majority. If you really want me to cut it down, maybe you can talk to me afterwards individually. If you can persuade me and I can persuade the class, we could do that. But right now, I'm going to just keep it the same. I pretty much try to change a little bit every year, make sure I have the most important content in class, in lecture, and then the rest you can kind of read it on your own. All right. Again, if you have any suggestions afterwards, let me know and we can talk about that. Also, please stop me at any point if you need any clarification. Yes, Marcus?
Could you post the slides before class?
I will address that in a minute. What's your name again?
Ariana.
Mariana? Yes.
I had 2 screenshots, and
Uh-huh.
so I submitted the wrong one, and I just realized. Is there any way that I could submit the right one?
Yes, you can actually email us, and then we'll just give you the credit.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
No problem. You good? Yeah, so stop me at any point if you need any clarification or if you need time to try to understand the material. I can explain to you, or I can ask your classmates to explain to you. Especially for online students, I know you guys don't really voice up during the lecture, but if you have something that you think it's important, you can unmute yourself, or you can ask Emily to ask me. Right. Oh, yeah, again, because I try to make this more like a seminar style. There's a back and forth interaction instead of I'm just giving you all the information. So please feel free to stop me. Comment. Why is the quiz ahead of the lectures? And why did we take the first exam before finishing chapter 5? Someone commented that. Well, the answer is that the quiz is to help you prepare for the class discussion that coming week. So you're previewing what we're going to do. And we also have some questions for you to review what we learned last week. And this is in the syllabus. That's the purpose why how we designed the quiz. For the second question, nope, we finished chapter 5 before the first exam, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we started chapter 6 after the first exam, which is on Monday. So yeah, we did finish chapter 5. The suggestion is post the lecture slides before class. Actually, someone asked me before. I forgot who that was, but they asked me before. The answer is that I understand this might be helpful to someone, but I can't really do it. So this will help those who are self-disciplined. They have the notes, they have the slides, they come in, they still listen to class, but it would do more harm than good for other students. The professors that I know, 100%, like no one will give the slides before class because it would reduce attendance rates. People are less likely to pay attention because they think that they have the information in front of them. I don't know if you have that feeling that you think, oh, I understand everything when you are reviewing the slides. But when I actually ask you a question, or your teammate or your groupmate asks you a question, it's hard for you to explain that. Right? So you have that feeling, right? So that's why I cannot just give you the material beforehand. It will make you less likely to pay attention in class. It just affect your grades in a bad way. So I can't do that. I'm sorry, but I understand where this is coming from. And if I were in undergrad, I know I can self-discipline. Yes, I would rather have the slides before class. But just for the greater good of the class, I can't do that. solution lecture outlines, again, that could be helpful. If you don't think lecture outline is helpful, please let me know. Maybe we can make some changes to that. Comments. I have several comments says there's too much reading. Okay. So answer, I totally understand. Especially English is not my first language. Imagine when I was in undergrad, the readings that I have to do, I spend twice or three times of the amount than my classmates. The reading material, I would say it's kind of normal for a college level class. If you want to do well, if you want to be competitive in the future, you have to get used to it. Also, you can use natural reader. Have you guys tried that? No? Try that. It will read the text for you. It's kind of like you're listening to a podcast. So you can do something else while listening to it. And you don't have to go too deep in the readings. You just need to know the basic. This requires reading skills. If you haven't learned that before, you try to read everything and try to remember everything. That's not what I want you to do. And this takes practice and time. As you get used to it, reading a lot of material, you will kind of get used to how to get the main points and how to get the basic without spending too much time on readings. Okay, and study group, this can help a lot. You can talk to your study group, and people have different perspectives when they read about textbooks, and you can talk about what you learned, what you have read, and other people can make up what you missed. So study group can be very helpful. Academic success, they can give you tips how to read. I haven't been to the academic success here, but in my undergrads, I had to go to a lot of those like study helping center. They will teach me how to read faster, how to get the main points. I understand it takes time and practice for you guys. Okay. Any questions on the reading part? No? Okay. Yeah, I totally understand it's a lot, but it's kind of normal for college students. I noticed almost all comments are positive, and this is unusual. I usually get like some bad comments out of them. And I did mention the survey is anonymous, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So you can be very honest. If you really don't like something, just let us know, and we can change that. All right. Any questions so far? What we just talked about. We good? Okay, so today we are going to talk about hearing and vision in the sensation parts. So hearing. First, we're going to talk about the characteristics of sound. Amplitude, this is the strength or intensity of the signal. And we call it the sound wave. And amplitude determines loudness. We have a scale from 0 to 200 plus decibels. That's how we measure loudness or the amplitude of sound. Okay. So any sounds above 85 decibels cause hearing loss. And you remember I mentioned that? So, and I'm going to talk about what kind of hearing loss it is and whether it's repairable or not. So here is the chart. The threshold of hearing, we set it as 0 decibels, and then it goes up. If you are in a heavy auto traffic, it goes up to 100 decibels. So if you're in a traffic, make sure you roll up the windows and have some light music instead of rolling down the windows and then try to make the music louder than the outside environment. That's going to hurt your hearing even more. The loudest human shout on record was 111 decibels, and then it goes all the way up to spacecraft launch. if you work in an environment that has loud noises, make sure you have ear protections. Next, we have wavelength. This is the frequency of the sound wave, which is how many waves per second. This determines pitch. When a sound has short wavelength, it has a higher pitch. And when the sound has a longer wavelength, we call it, it has a lower pitch. And human can hear from about 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz within that range.
Can you go back like real quick?
Yep. All right, good. So hearing and frequency, the older we get, our ability to hear high-pitched sounds decreases. The younger you are, the higher frequency you can hear. So now we are going to do a demonstration. This shows how old is your hearing, and it's pretty interesting. Okay, so we're going to do a group test. It's going to demonstrate the pitch from low to high pitch. And then whenever you cannot hear, that's your hearing age. And also it might get pretty loud, a little annoying too, but it's pretty short. So how's your hearing age? What was it?
I lost that at 15.
15?
Yeah.
It's pretty good. 30?
No,
25?
30.
30? I think mine was 25-ish, but and then I hear something else. I don't know if it's from the machine or that's weird because it sounded louder than before. I don't know if that's because we have bad speakers here, which is causing that, or I don't know. You can try this at home with an earphone. That's gonna work better than having this outside speaker. Okay. So can you think of any applications of learning hearing and frequency? And people actually use that in real life. How would you use this? Yes, Ethan?
And one of the big things is just quality of life for people who live near highways and other things. You need to understand like frequency and stuff to make sure that they don't have constant hearing damage or that.
Okay, yeah. Yep. So for highway, that's more about loudness instead of pitch. But you can also use this, right? If you know, like, because like when you hear higher frequency of pitching, it doesn't really hurt your ear. You just can't hear it. Does that make sense? Yeah. But you're going to the right direction.
Like, I don't know, like, I think of music, like, you can, helps them find, like, a range that, like, everyone can listen to it and not, like, lose notes because of the pitch is too high or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. So if you have a song and your target audience is older age people, you might not want to use very high pitch sound because they might not hear, right? Very good. So high pitch noise versus kids. Some mall uses this. They will play very high pitch noise in the mall constantly so that the kids wouldn't want to stay there for too long because they're annoying. I think it was on the news at some point. They said it's cruel, but it's something that you can use. Also, high-pitched cell phone rings versus old professors. Like, you can have your phone ringtone turn on to very high pitch during class, and they won't hear. or you can cheat, like 1 beep is A, 2 beeps is B,
Wow. This
but don't do that. I think I read that somewhere online or something. It's dumb, but don't do it. You get caught. Well, we're not going to talk about other things, but think about how you can use this information in your life. You can be creative. So the 5 steps in hearing. First, we have the accessory structures. This modify the sound. And we'll talk about each individual structures here in the next slide. So in the accessory structures for sound, first we have the pinna. This is the outer ear. It collects the sound waves. Then the sound waves travel to your tympanic membrane, and this causes the mechanical vibration. And then that vibration goes to your ossicles bones. And in this ossicle bones, you have the hammer, anvil, and stirrup. And they amplify the vibration from the tympanic membrane. You don't need to remember the location of this, the parts. After the ossicles bones amplify the vibrations, it goes to your oval window, and this transferred your sound to cochlea. And this is like the cochlea. It's like a snail. For conductive deafness, this is when you have issues with the conducting system. So for example, you have broken membrane, you have broken bones, maybe some of the parts here are damaged, and we call that conductive deafness. And we can replace them using artificial stuff to regain your hearing. Right? Next, the next step is transduction. From your oval window to cochlea, the sound is converted into a neural signal. So first we know it's physical, right? It's the sound wave. And then it becomes the mechanical waves. And then it becomes the neural signal in the transduction stage. Next, it goes to the sensory nerves. Your auditory nerves carry the output from the sensory receptors to your central nervous system, which is your brain in this case. It doesn't really go to your spinal cord. So in your sensory nerves, and this is in your inner ear, you have the cochlea, and this is the fluid-filled tube wrapped into a spiral. The sound waves pass from the oval window through the fluid in the cochlea, which is here. And then this causes the basilar membrane to bend. And this is the basilar membrane. That is the bendable floor of the cochlea. The movement of the basilar membrane moves the hair cells inside. Here you have like tons of hair cells. And this is connected to your auditory nerve. The hair cells are the sensory receptors for sound. And the auditory nerve, they are the bundle of axons going to your brain. And if you have any damage to your hair cells, this is caused by loud sound, you will have nerve deafness. And this is very hard to treat because we can't really do anything about your nerve at this moment. So make sure, protect your hearing. Don't play music too loud or work in a loud environment for too long. All right, so you get the difference between conductive deafness and nerve deafness, right? Yeah, okay, good. So, question, we don't have eye clicker, so. Jet likes to bark at squirrels. When he does, the pressure from the sound eventually stimulates hair cells resting against my just mentioned this.
Inner ear?
So inner ear, basal membrane. Yep. So the hair cells. Wait, where did it go? Okay, right here. So it's memorization. If you don't remember, don't worry about it. And you can also say it's the inner ear. Not really. Right. Hold on. Yeah, you're right. That's not a good answer. You can say it's the inner ear or the basal membrane. But to be more exact, it's on the basal membrane. You won't see this on the exam. Don't worry about that. In step 4 of hearing is the thalamus. So your neural energy is transferred here, and this is where the primary processing occurs. And then after the thalamus, the sound information gets relayed to the auditory cortex. And this is when your perception occurs. Before that, everything is about senses. You're just getting the outside information. Once it gets to your cortex, you start to have different perceptions. Okay. So for your auditory cortex, the aspects of the sound are processed independently, such as source, type, and the frequency of sound. So they're not processed together. We have the ability to localize sound. This is how we do it is using both of our ears to detect time differences and loudness between them. If you only have one ear, you will have trouble localizing the sound. So you have trouble hearing 3D sounds. To perceive pitch, certain frequencies activate areas of auditory cortex. So different areas of cortex process different frequencies of the sound. So in the cortex, we have auditory perceptions. While we perceive sounds, other senses can be important to the hearing. So our senses, they don't really work independently. One sense can influence the other. Let's say smell and taste, they influence each other. If you cover the smell, you cover your nose while eating something, you taste different than you have the smell sense. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So it's the same with hearing and sight. And I'm going to show you this auditory illusion, which is called a McGurk effect.
At any one moment, we are being bombarded by sensory information. Our brains do a remarkable job of making sense of it all. It seems easy enough to separate the sounds we hear from the sights we see. But there is one illusion that reveals this isn't always the case.
Ba, ba, ba.
Have a look at this. What do you hear?
Ba, ba, ba. Ba, ba, ba.
But look what happens when we change the picture.
Ba, ba, ba. Ba, ba, ba. Ba.
And yet, the sound hasn't changed. In every clip, you are only ever hearing ba with a B.
Ba, ba. Ba.
It's an illusion known as the McGurk effect.
Ba.
Take another look.
Ba.
Concentrate first on the right of the screen.
Ba.
Now to the left of the screen.
Ba.
The illusion occurs because what you are seeing clashes with what you are hearing.
In the illusion,
what we see overrides what we hear. So the mouth movements we see as we look at a face can actually influence what we believe we're hearing. If we close our eyes, we actually hear the sound as it is. If we open our eyes, we actually see how the mouth movements can influence what we're hearing. Ba, ba, ba.
It's a bizarre effect. Remember, the only sound you're hearing is ba with a B.
Ba, 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 ba.
What's remarkable about this illusion is even knowing how it's done doesn't seem to make a difference.
Ba. The effect works no matter how much you know about the effect. I've been studying the McGurk effect for 25 years now, and I've been the face in the stimuli. I've seen stimuli thousands of times, but the effect still works on me. I can't help it. The speech brain just takes in that information and doesn't care about what outside knowledge you bring to bear. Ba, 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 ba.
The McGurk effect shows us that what we hear may not always be the truth.
Ba.
But it also helps us to understand what happens when our senses conflict.
Ba, ba, ba. When the brain has the conflicting information, it tries to make sense of that conflict. And depending on what type of modality is providing more, I guess, salient information, that information might override or at least combine with the other information.
So we can't always trust what we hear, because sometimes our sense of vision takes over, enabling us to maintain a coherent view of the world.
Okay, so this also works for deaf people, because during the pandemic, they can't really read other people's lips, and they will have a harder time communicating with other people. So the question, Rachel often has trouble hearing a student's question, but bending her ear, she can hear better. She's making her what to help her hear better?
D.
Yep, so the outer ear will be one of your accessory structures. Very good. Next, vision. So our eyes respond to different aspects of light. First, we have the light intensity. That's the amplitude of the waves. This determines the brightness of the light. Next, we have the light wavelength. This determines what color we see, which is here. All right, you can distinguish brightness and color, right? Okay. So just remember, one is amplitude and the other is wavelength. So the 5 steps in vision. First, we have the accessory structures. This modify our light. We have the cornea, iris, a lens, and the fluid in the eye. So first, the light enters via cornea. This is the transparent protective layer, right here. And then the light passes through the pupil. And that's the opening behind the cornea. After that, the iris adjusts the light allowed in the eye by contracting or expanding. So this iris is also what gives our eyes color. So this works like a camera. So sometimes you see the camera expand the lens and shrink, so that's how that works. Then the lens bends the light rays through accommodation. We'll talk about that process later. The light rays are focused into an image on the retina, which is on the back of the eyeball. The second step will be transduction. The light is converted into a neuronal signal by photoreceptors, rods and cones, in the retina. So photoreceptors, they're at the back of the retina. When they detect light, it travels to bipolar cells, and then it goes to your ganglion cells, and finally it reaches the optic nerve. On the optic nerve, it does not have photoreceptors. So that's your blind spot. We don't see that blind spot because our brain automatically fills it up. And you can find your blind spot using this link if you're interested. There are two types of photoreceptors, as we mentioned. The first one, we have rods. We have about 120 million of them. They're responsible for vision at low light levels, but not color. So this gives you night vision. And they only exist in the periphery of the retina, so they're not in the center. You can activate them by pressuring them. So when you're in the dark and you really need to see quickly, let's say you're in an emergency, you can press your eyes to activate the rods quicker so you can see better or faster at night. Then we have the cones. We have about 6 million of them, so much less than the rods. They're active at higher light levels. That's why in the dark we don't really see color. This gives you the ability to detect color and acuity, so sharpness. And they exist mostly in the center, or we call it the fovea. If you have more cones, it means that you have a better ability to detect color and acuity. Any questions? Yes?
What was the first part of the eye? Like, it was transpection was the second one. What was the first one?
Accessory structure. Yep. So, do you remember last class I showed you that graph? First step, accessory structure, and that's the same for all the senses. Yep. It's just like you have different structures for different senses. Good question. Okay, question. Dave is driving late at night and sees a flickering light out of the corner of his eye. When he glances directly at it, he doesn't see anything. This is because there are more cones or rods in his periphery that detect either light or color. B, so rods in the periphery, and then it detects light. You agree? Okay, very good. So B. Next, we have the optic nerves. That's the step 3. They carry the output from sensory receptors through the optic chiasm to your central nervous system, again, your brain. So the optic chiasm, this is our visual pathway. So about half of the visual information crosses over to the other side. Do you know the term chiasm? Do you know the definition? No? Okay, so I didn't know that either. I had to look it up. So chiasm is the X-shaped structure found at the point below the brain where the two optic nerves cross over each other. So that's what the term means. So your right side of visual fields goes to your left hemisphere. And then your left side of visual fields goes to your right hemisphere. And this is kind of linked to what we learned on the first part of the class, the split brain patient. Okay. All right. Next, we have our energy, neural energy, travels to the LGN, so that's the lateral genicular nucleus of the thalamus. And this part is where our primary processing occurs. Do you remember the thalamus? What kind of center it is? I heard something. Very good, relay center. Remember that. All your senses have to go to the thalamus, besides smell, and then to your cortex. What was your name? Adia? Adua? Dua. Okay, sorry about that. All right.
He has hearing of a 25-year-old man.
Exactly. Step 5 is your visual information gets relayed to your visual cortex. That's where your perception occurs. Okay, we have 10 minutes. So why do we see color? First, we have the trichromatic color theory. This suggests that any color can be produced by mixing pure vision of blue, green, and red lights in different ratio. For example, if you have a red light beam combined with a green light beam, you will see yellow. And then if you have red and white, you kind of see pink-ish. You don't need to remember the combination.
Red
But,
and white.
hmm?
You said red and white, right?
Yep. Alright. So this theory suggests that we have 3 types of cones, and they activate differently. When we have short wavelength light, which is about blue to violet, we also have the medium wavelength, which is green, and then the long wavelength, it's from green to yellowish color. And our cones activate differently based on the wavelength. This also explains the symptom of color blindness, this theory. So color blindness, we also call it the monochromats. What they see is like this. They don't see any color. So sometimes you hear like color blindness is like they can distinguish red, yellow, blue, green. That's not like really color blindness. That's more like color deficiency. So for color blindness, real color blindness, the causes include you might not have cones, or your cones are not working. You might have damage to the neural pathway for color processing. So those could be the cause. So color deficiency, they're not completely colorblind. We have red-green or blue-yellow deficiency. Those are the most common color deficiency we have. So they can see brightness differences. They just can't distinguish those 2 colors. They cannot distinguish the opponent pairs. Right. If you're interested in color deficiency and whether you have it, you can try it here. I embedded the link here. Can everyone distinguish the color? Or I think in the past we have people never knew that they were color deficient until they look at the colors here. Okay, so next we have a different theory. It's called the opponent process theory. This suggests that the visual elements are sensitive to color that are grouped into 3 pairs. Each pair member inhibits the other. We have the red versus green, blue versus yellow, and black versus white. For example, when red is on, the green is off. When green is on, the red is off. So those work against each other. That's how we call it the opponent process theory. Yes?
So like if this whole room was like red light, we wouldn't see the color green.
Not necessary. It's just in your brain, you're more sensitive in one condition. When the other condition occurs, you are. I'll show you an example. It's kind of abstract, but abstract. I'll show you an example. So this explains after images. Do you know what after images are?
Yeah.
Okay, so here, so both theories, they are correct. They just explains different aspects of our sight. We have some time, so look at this. Focus here, and don't move your sight away. Just focus. Do you see the opponent color? You did?
Yeah.
Maybe just for moments. Maybe it lasts longer for other people.
If you blink.
So that's how this works. When one is activated for too long, it takes a while for your eyes to reset. And then when you see a white, you see white background, you will see the opposite of that color. So remember, green pairs with red, blue pairs with yellow, black pairs with white. Okay, so any questions? Yes, Ethan?
So with the trichromatic theory, wouldn't that kind of just be for the colors that we can see? Because can't like certain shrimp and other animals see, or supposedly see more colors than we can, or more variation of colors?
So are you asking the difference between human and other animals?
Yeah, like I think it's like some type of shrimp is able to see like 27 color, or they have like 27
Uh-huh.
variations of tones versus us having 3.
Yeah, so I never understood those findings, like how they know what cats, dogs see, and then they have this picture. So this is how they see things. I never understood how that works. Like, how do they know? It might
Is it
take.
regarded as like a pseudoscience though? Because it seems like
I don't know. I keep seeing them, but it's not in the domain of psychology. We don't really get into that deep. But it'll be interesting if you can really find out, okay, how do you know that? Personally, I'm not that interested, so I never spent the time to do the research. But if you're interested in it, you can definitely try to find it out. We're good? Okay, I think that's it. No reminders. I don't think there's any reminders. So I'll see you on Friday.
Thank you.
Thank you.